All eyes are on Singapore as Asia's top regional security meeting kicks off. The three-day annual Shangrila-La Dialogue brings together defense ministers, military personnel, and policy watchers from over 49 countries. This year's summit comes in the backdrop of simmering diplomatic tension between the United States and China. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese opened the summit with a keynote address.
This gathering emphasises the value of frank and constructive discussion, as well as making it clear that preserving peace and security is not a task that any one of us can shoulder alone. Because just as the prosperity of our region has always been driven by shared opportunity, the stability of our region can only be secured through collective responsibility. That emphasis on both agreement and action, cooperation and capacity has always been at the core of this forum.
Leading up to the summit, China had rejected a proposal for U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to meet his Chinese counterpart Li Shangfu. U.S. Defense Secretary earlier called on Beijing to resume bilateral security talks, warning that incidents could, quote, spiral out of control if China's military continues to take provocative action in international waters and airspace.
I think that's unfortunate, but we're going to continue to do what we are doing in this region and others, and that is to work with like-minded countries who share common values and common goals to continue to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific.
Countering U.S. allegations, China says the responsibility for ongoing tension between the two countries' militaries lies entirely with the U.S. side. The two countries are also exchanging heated military signals around Taiwan, with the U.S. ramping up its military support despite Beijing's repeated warnings. Further pressure has also been mounted on the Asian superpower as a security conference that started Friday. An official for the NATO Defense Policy and Planning has urged Beijing to be more transparent in its accelerating nuclear weapons buildup. NATO Representative Angus Lapsley added that China's scale and pace of nuclear expansion was, quote unquote, really striking. Well, for more on this, we are being joined by retired Colonel Rich Outzen. He is the senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and the Jamestown Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. You know, it seems that U.S.-China relations overshadowed the first day of this conference. Is this how it's going to be moving forward?
Well, Suzanne, it's great to be with you, and thanks for having me. We have to remember what the setting is. Shangri-La, sponsored by IISS, is an annual security conference that's not really official in nature. It is a gathering sponsored by a think tank with some probably some variety of government and corporate sponsors that brings together a bunch of people from a bunch of different backgrounds. It's sort of a convention, if you will, rather than a strictly bilat meeting. So the fact that the Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu has chosen not to meet with his counterpart, his American counterpart, Lloyd Austin, our Secretary of Defense, isn't that surprising? We have to remember, first of all, that this setting is sort of an informal one, and in a Communist Party-dominated state like the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Defense Minister will have come, or Chief of Defense will have come with a pretty narrow mandate, some pretty well-scripted talking points, and the last thing Beijing wants is to get him into a personal relationship, even off the record, with Lloyd Austin, in which he might develop his own ideas or might develop some sort of personal ties. Even in the United States, to be fair, if you recall during the previous administration, when it was revealed that our chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, had conversations with the Chinese Chief of Defense, with his counterpart, it became fairly controversial. So the idea that in a fraught relationship like this, you'll avoid having two second-level leaders, not the top national leaders, but second-level leaders meeting without a bunch of choreography is probably not that big a surprise. That said, it is reflective of growing tension in the relationship. China continues to push to sort of co-opt diplomatically and militarily countries in the region and assert its role as a hegemonic or quasi-hegemonic power. in Asia. And as Lloyd Austin said, that isn't at odds with the vision shared by the United States and Japan, Australia, Europe, most of Europe, and India, which is that of a free and open Indo-Pacific. So as long as that clash of visions is there, we can expect tensions like this, although both sides are trying to keep them within certain limits.
Very interesting. Retired Colonel Rich Outzen, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, and thank you for joining us on WION.
Good to see you as well.